Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Sorry about the little confusion with the microphones, but things happen. We usually like to have an atmosphere of peace into which we can come on Sunday mornings, but it doesn't always work out that way. I remember I was just thinking about a class I went to in Los Angeles, one of Mary Hunt's classes in a hotel. And it was a big room that had been partitioned off, and there was another group in the adjoining room. And we just settled into meditation. We heard this booming voice say, "Come on up, Joe, and tell us how you sold those cars." Mary Hunt said something that I've used ever since. She said, "Now don't forget, silence is not just the opposite of noise." And I've used that for years. Well, anyway, this is the second in our ongoing series of talks by students and teachers of the Infinite Way. And today we have with us Dulcie Smith. Dulcie's an old friend of many of us here this morning. And I met her, we figured out, in 1981 at another Mary Hunt retreat. Dulcie was a delightful addition to that class, and held us spellbound one evening, telling us about her private peace mission to Moscow, Russia. I'll never forget it. She's been a makeup artist and in the movies and in television for many years, and we're very happy to have her with us this morning. So please welcome Dulcie Smith.
Yeah, we're in show business.
We are in show business.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and I am Dulcie Smith. And as I was sitting here thinking, what in the world am I doing in this chair, and what in the world are all of you doing there on a Sunday? You know, why do we come together? You know, many of you have been with Joel. Many of you have been on the path, meditating, reading. You probably read every book Joel made, heard every tape or close to it. But what is it about coming together? And for me, it's that hour and a half of absolute non-separation. Not only, you know, from my God, but absolute non-separation from one another. And, you know, I think the world is not suffering from lack of knowledge these days. It's suffering from lack of love. And lack of love is that non-separation, that feeling that, you know, we can connect. But about the silence, it's funny you mentioned that, because the first thing I was going to open with was, which came to me loud and clear while we were meditating, was, "As a fish is without the ocean, I cannot breathe without the silence." And that's been my experience since I tasted it and touched it. You're not hearing back there, Dorothy Smith. Are you? Okay. Can you hear now? Is that better? Okay, everybody? Okay. I'll just repeat that part because it's one of my favorites. As a fish is without the ocean, I cannot breathe without the silence. And I was flailing as a fish out of water for many years. I had a biblical upbringing as a child, and spent 20 years absolutely engulfed in Scripture. And one day I turned a corner, and when I threw that religion out, I threw out a God concept of any kind, and I was agnostic for about 7 years. And I went from that. I had no metaphysical background at all. I wasn't raised in Christian Science. I didn't have moms that were in Christian Science like 3 of our teachers. I've been to a lot of the teachers. The minute I tasted it, I had to have more. I think I was at a retreat literally once a month for the last 25 years. The way I could do that, as Gary was explaining, I was in the film business, so I had a job that was completely, to some people would be quite chaotic. You were hired and fired 3-4 times a week, 3-4 times a month. You never know where you were going to be, when, on a plane, on a train, or not at all. And so there were months and weeks that would go by without me having to go to a secular job. And during that time, I was at all the teachers' homes, I was at the meditations and at the retreats, and sat on the film set with Joel in my side pocket of my set chair. And my card said, makeup illusionist. And I was so aware that God had to double trip me on this illusion. And I'm pretty much under a directive of learning to understand and demonstrate the illusionary nature of the third dimensional world. So I had to have it doubled up. And I remembered I was on a film set in a Civil War epic. And we had bodies laying everywhere, and they would sit up and drink a glass of water and lay back down, and we had blood, and we had, and I'm standing there, and I'm kind of new in the message on this epic, and I'm saying, God, what in the world am I doing here on this project, And, the voice said, you will learn to see the illusionary nature of the third dimensional world. And of course, in an industry where everything is smoke and mirrors and camouflage and makeup and changing everything, nothing is as it appears. And I was looking around at the room. I was just thinking as the flowers came in and thinking nothing is as it appears. And it's whatever my conditioned mind tells the story around it. Whatever the story is I'm telling around it is what I'm seeing out there. Now, that's the bad news and the good news, because the bad news is I have a lot of conditioning that has been given me through family, churches, Bibles, belief systems, religions, friends, relatives. The good news is none of them have any real power over me. The minute I recognize, and here's the key for me, I must recognize the illusionary nature of my conditioning. If I don't recognize it, it'll have me. It'll just have me, and I'm gone. And I love what Mary Baker always said, stand porter at the door. And if that belief gets in, whatever it might be about thee or me or thou, or whatever's coming up into my arena, if I let it in and I don't catch it and recognize that it's conditioning, it's a belief, the only time I'm in reaction, and this path for me, and all of you, Joel says, is about not reacting, not judging by appearances. Appearances in what? My judgment of good or evil. The original sin, right out the gate, right out the garden. You're having a hard time hearing? Right out the gate was judgment in good and evil. We ate of the fruit of good and evil. When I say we, I mean mankind. So this is the legend. And here we are. Everything is about judging good or evil or walking away. In Native American, I love this one. It says, it just says, any conflict, anything coming up, whether it's someone with 20 coupons in front of you at the grocery store or the waitress that forgets your water or whatever, it's like inwardly, I walk away. Whether it's simple or, and when I can remember that, I step back, I walk away. Catches me a lot, but I walk away 100 times a day. And I never have stopped in my journey loving this that I hated when I first read it in Joel. I was really upset with the first wisdom. Begin your spiritual life with the understanding that all, it doesn't say some of them, unless they're theirs. It doesn't say that. It says all conflicts must be settled within your consciousness, my consciousness. I did not like taking 100% responsibility and accountability for the way I was viewing it. And any of this non-reaction that I'm about is my way of viewing it and me correcting it. And then it says there is never, it doesn't say Sometimes there's never a conflict. It says there is never a conflict with person or condition, but rather a false concept mentally entertained about person, things, circumstances, or condition. Therefore, make the correction within yourself rather than attempting to change anyone or anything in the without. And that also includes myself. I've noticed that through the years I've had to really get off my case and let God be God, let Dulcie be Dulcie, let Mary be Mary, let Joel be Joel, and not try to have Joel's spiritual experience, not try to have Mary's, not try to have Jeanette's. I can only have mine. I can only come through what has been put in front of me. That's the spiritual journey I need to have my eyes on. And when this conflict arises, I have little tools, and I'll snap my fingers. And mostly now I just pull back, just back in. And for me, it's come to be more of a vertical living rather than horizontal. It was always it was always about what you thought, what you were doing, what you thought of me, what I thought of me. It's like there's that old saying, okay, enough about me. Now what do you think about me? But, it ceases to become about the little self. It just ceases to become about, and don't you just get tired sometimes of this? It's just like, all right already, just lay down. Go back home. Back home, come home. Dulcie, come home. Be still, come home. And I had no idea when I was going through until now that I'm out of the film business a few months and I'm backed away from it. Even though I'd had long periods out of it, I had no idea the training I was getting there till now I'm viewing. In fact, as I'm speaking about some of it right now. But one of the things that happens in a film set is there's a thing called room tone, and after every scene, when they have decided whether they're going to use that scene or take it again, they say, okay, everybody be still. We need room tone, and that means the sound guy has to hear the room without a pin dropping, nothing going on. Every time that happened, that was my call to silence. And I was working every time they'd say room tone, bam, into the silence. And now that was some really wonderful silence. However, what do you do when your silence is just because my other favorite saying, I have thousands and I always say they're my favorite, but I love this one. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the absence of self. Now, there's a process that we can all take of getting rid of self. And everybody has their own way of doing it. How do we get rid of that little self? How do we stop being so concerned with that personality self, and yet it's God appearing as. One of my other mentors gave me a gift of explaining to me of how about getting out of the way is like getting back into the audience and get off the stage and let this production, let this illusionary world, Jesus said it very clearly, be in the world but not of it. Be in the audience, become the watcher, Dulcie, watch, you don't have to participate in every drama and every scene coming down. And so, always I love that, be still and know, and it just constantly, daily, be still and know, pull back, come home, be still and know. And the human condition is this, or especially those of us on this path, is one of schizophrenia. One foot in the human life, and we're told to be in the marketplace, be amongst our fellows, don't isolate, and yet be still and know. And it's a walk, it's a tightrope walk. And Mary Hunt wrote a a book called the Razor's Edge, and that's what it felt like for years for me. One foot, in the world, one foot constantly, as Joel says, with the ear turned, listening, be still, be still. And as it was explained to me, it's not the marquee saying dull. As I felt in the religious belief that I was in early on, and I do when I run into some fundamentalists, and they're always wanting, well, are you Christian? Are you Christian? And I say yes, and then under my breath, and I'm Buddhist, and I'm, and I'm all the above. But I love what it says, when I can see the marquee clearly. It says, God presents Dulcie. It doesn't say, Dulcie presents God, which is what I hear in my old religious upbringing was, got to get out there, got to tell people about Jehovah God, or the I, or whatever you call them, Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter. It's not that, we're not here presenting God. We're here getting out of the way for God to live Dorothy's they're still not hearing back there. Yeah. Is there a speaker back there? Dorothy, come on up here. There's 3 seats. Okay. You can hear? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, come on up. If you're not hearing, come closer. Okay. Everybody okay? Oh, good. Okay. All right. There's several seats up. There's 2 anyway. Well, I'm a really major one here. Maybe Joel's sitting there, or Mary. But before I started talking, I invited all of them. I said, Joel, if you're not here, I'm not here, and Mary and Barbara and Doris, and I've had many wonderful teachers. I was an absolute groupie. I came out of, Kay and I were reminiscing about coming out of hippiedom. We were the flower children of the 60s. But I became an infinite way groupie, Instead of following the rock bands, I followed every teacher. I would see a flyer. I was on the plane to that class, I went to classes when I had no money and would sleep in my car and not tell anybody, and, eat 1 salad bar at a Carl's Jr. just to be there and that type of thing. And that was years ago, in between gigs, as they say. We know about those. But anyway, the whole time God was, having his way with me, and when I was thinking I was floating out to sea, God had me by the scruff of the neck, and I seem to be, I do have, the voice will speak to me loud and clear, and also I get picked up by the scruff of my neck, and my experience is like being a puppy, where the mother dog grabs the puppy and shakes it like that and says, you are off principle. This is, and then it's laid on me. And I've had that happen several times. If I'm marching down and I've got it going, whatever it is, and I think I'm practicing, and I get grabbed up and knocked awake, And if it doesn't happen inward, it will happen outwardly. Because when I reached Joel, I was literally starving to death inwardly, and I had thrown out, as I said, and I'm grateful now that I did throw out that old concept of God. And the retreat that I think we got it up too high. I hear back up. We're going to be doing a retreat in Malibu starting tomorrow night. For a week of major silence. And I've been going for years, and I started where I could only be silent, a few minutes, and then a few hours, and then maybe a day, and Mary would have a 1-day Encino class, and next thing we know, in 3 Rivers for a while, we were up to 8 days of silence. And at first, I couldn't take it, because there was all this chatter, and I didn't know how to drop behind the mind. I was still listening to the mind, still believing, not only not believing it perhaps, but listening to it. And I had to be taught slowly how to treat the mind like you do the television that someone else is watching over in the other side of the room, and dropping back. And I guess we had a lot of circumstances where we had to learn to meditate in the boiler factory, and for instance, the things that were going on next door. And one time we were in Hawaii at a Mary class, and they moved our room, and we were next to the laundry, and these big, huge dryers and washers went on, and the boiler heating the water was so loud, it was like a boiler factory. And Mary says, well, we were told that we had to learn to meditate in the boiler factory. That's why I can meditate in the middle of the street now, and I had to learn to meditate in the makeup room and on the set and in the middle of cars crashing down off of houses and fires and all, lightning machines, and I had to learn to be still, go in, be still. Because what good are we, I personally am not given the, which I would think would be a luxury, of being away in a cave. To me, that would be a luxury, to be able to just sit in that union and communion all the time. So I had to learn how to have it within regardless. And I'm certainly fail a lot, and I come back a lot and catch myself. But when I got here after 7 years of not believing that there was a God, and I don't even know what I meant by that, but yes, I do. What I meant was, I no longer believe in a God outside myself that has a list of good and evil, of heaven and hell, of, dark and light. I no longer, I recognize now that there is no law to darkness. There is no law to disease. There isn't. There is lightness, and there is presence of God. There is no law to hold it up. And if I have a basement full of darkness and step down into it, I don't pick up a sword and do battle with the dark. I simply add light to it. And that's what the healing is. I simply add the truth to the appearance of, quote, disease. Simply add the light. There is nowhere where God is not. And if there is, then there isn't any at all. There is nowhere where God is not. Anywhere in the body, anywhere in this room, there is nowhere God is not. And I have to remind myself of that constantly. And then I forget again. And then I remember again. And then I forget again, and then you remind me. Or I call somebody and they remind me. Or I drop back into the silence. Because the silence, why do we go there? Why do we go there? There it is. Absolute non-separation, moment by moment by moment. The peace that knoweth no understanding. Why do we give up everything to have nothing? Have no thing. It's intoxicating. People have walked miles on their knees to try to get it. We give up every person, every place, and everything to taste communion with our soul, touching the hem of the garment, knowing who we are. The only way I learned knowing who I am is by years of figuring out who I wasn't. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Oh, well, I'm not that after all. Well, I'm not that after all. Oh, I'm not that after all. Finally, I find out I'm not anything. That's really reassuring. But once you've tasted the silence, and then when it holds you, there's nothing you can't explain it, you know. And if you haven't touched it, you don't know until you've touched it what you've missed. And then the longing that sets up to be there again, to just taste my beloved, to just be there, to be present. And then to be able to take that out. And it speeds up as I come out into the world. It speeds up out here. And in here takes more of a stronger muscle to hold it and to maintain it. And thank you, Joel. I mean, what a master. I mean, I never hear a tape that I just don't sit in absolute awe of what came from that man. You know, how many tapes have we all heard? You know, how many books have we listened to and read, and how many hours in silence, and we don't get enough. It's the great obsession for me. Someone said the other day that they heard Joel, and their whole world opened up and everything just flowed into them. And I was thinking mine was just the reverse for a long time. I found Joel and absolutely everything was stripped, and it's happened 3 times since I've been on the path. And the fear finally dissipates. When someone calls for help, I get quite a few calls for help. When someone calls for help, I know the only thing to be removed is the word fear. Fear is always the motivation of every call for help. The only thing to do is to remove the fear. Someone cannot drop into the silence with that little self there. You know, remember that I said the silence is not the absence of sound, but the absence of self. So the first thing I have to do is find where the fear is and remove the fear. Not necessarily intellectually, but I hear the fear, and I have to take the fear away so they can drop into that silence, and they can trust that, and they can stand on it, and I drop into it and I stand on it for a foundation, because I called, people stood on the silence. People said things to me like there's nothing but God. One time I was having a heart attack, and I've had a few of those. And I remember calling Doris, and she says, "Oh, my dear, there is no heart but God. There's only one heart." And I went, of course. It was gone. I went back into, there's just one heartbeat, and it's God. And then there's always with the fear, the best way for me to get to the end of the fear is, what is the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen if I have a heart attack? It's over. This incarnation, I get to come back and be something else or not. You know, what's the worst that can happen? And when I remove the fear from whatever it is that is appearing to be either personally or for you, that removing of that fear, then the person can drop into knowing, I hear now, there's nothing but God. All of that was just the darkness needing light shed on it. And I think that's all we do with each other, is go around holding the flashlight, you know. When something comes up, just turn on the flashlight. Let's just be quiet for a few minutes. Let's drop back into that silence. And expand and increase this time. Let's go into the I. Drop back into I. I am. Nothing after that, just I am. I am here now. Moment by moment by moment. Remembering to breathe. This group has been under an assignment, I believe, for a week or 2 weeks of recognizing the Christ. Is that right? 2 weeks? Recognizing the Christ in everyone. And it was very, I didn't quite, it was for years, this has been the assignment, but and there was a sentence I heard, because if someone's standing there beating their kid in front of you, it's pretty hard to see the Christ. And yet, I have a sentence inside of me that says this is a call to prayer. Call to prayer, call to prayer. Whenever I'm in seeing call to prayer, call to prayer. For me, that means to drop down into God. God is on the field. The sentence that works for me is, behold the Christ longing to come into expression. Because I could not see that. I could not see the Christ. You know, the appearance is, sometimes the appearance is too strong. But behold the Christ longing to come into expression. Somehow that I could see, that underneath that was this soul. And why would this event be happening in my consciousness if I wasn't given the challenge of behold the Christ right there, no matter what it looks like, longing for recognition, longing for expression. And that somehow neutralized it, made it easier for me, took the edge off. And because that I understand, it is longing, even though it's longing for recognition. And that goes for any accident or anything. It's our call as spiritual, let's see, what are we be called? Students, I guess is a good word. But everything that happens like that is a gift to me to wake me up and to drop back. And the only assignment, or the only thing when Buddha was finally, after all the disciples were coming to him about his path and everything, when he was asked how you know if you're enlightened, he says, I'm awake. I'm awake. And that's what meditation is about. It's not about zoning off and, cloud nining, isn't everything wonderful? No, it's about being awake, being conscious. And one of the words I've been working with for the last 6 months has been being impeccable with certain things. 2 and 2 is 4, not 6. 8 o'clock is 8 o'clock, not 20 after. Being impeccable with that type of thing. And it's a very hard challenge, because especially with words, that I seem to always be willing to take these challenges and try to work with them. And it's one of the words that I've been enjoying this. And before that was clarity, wanting clarity, where there was a long period of time when this path was one of escapism, where I could get out of the world and just, oh, it's not really there kind of thing, and that's not it at all. For me, it's about being awake and being conscious and not judging. And one of the ways I don't judge is, because I do judge, is that's what humans do. One of the ways I catch it, when I see myself judging, there's a difference in evaluating and perception and preferences. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, oh, that person shouldn't be doing that. Saying that person's doing that is not a judgment. But saying, oh, that's good or that's evil, then I've got my judgment in there. And one of the ways I do that is I take that in when I catch myself saying, this shouldn't be this way. The neighbor's dog should not be barking all night and disturbing Dulcie. I bring it back in and I say, why? What is this? And what's going on here? Cats meow, dogs bark, neighbor's dogs bark. Okay, how can I sit behind this, and get back into? And I take it, and it's what's happened for me, and it's happened with music, it's happened with a lot of things, that if I pop back in and say, it's a call to prayer, it's the Christ calling out for recognition and non-judgment, it's amazing how it'll disappear. Maybe not immediately, but it will disappear. And one of my lessons was regarding a neighbor years ago that was disturbing the neighborhood. It was one of my bigger lessons. I guess that's why it pops through. There's an awful lot being said about forgiveness in the world today. And we as Infinite Way students say, well, what's to forgive? It's just God being God. We're not judging good and evil. If I'm not judging good and evil, then what's to forgive? Well, it's just a heart practice, and it's for my benefit. And it's an energy. It shifts my energy from my mind, from the belief of good and evil, down into my heart. And it was a neighbor, and his name was Ed, and I was very much, I was, listening to tapes day and night, and I was working a long film job and getting up, and I had to get up at 3 in the morning this one morning, and actually several in a row, and Ed was on his monthly, where he gets out with his, drunk. That's a good word. He's across the street, and he's a black man, and he's actually the only black man in this white mobile home park that I'm in up on this mountaintop, and a lot of seniors, and he had a big Harley Davidson, but he had a wife and 2 kids. But once a month he would go on this thing. I think maybe it had to do with, maybe he got paid monthly or something, and it was the end of the island. But he would be out there and revving his motorcycle, and it'd be 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's drinking beer and carrying on. The kids are crying and the wife's screaming, and it's just, and I'm like, God bless Ed, God bless Ed, and I'm taking my pillow and my blanket to go to the other end, because I was taught to bless the other person and, quote, see their Christ. Well, I'm not seeing their Christ at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm tired, and I got to get up at 3, And I am walking across the floor, and this is the first time I had the mother-dog experience, where I'm saying, God bless this person. And it was a purely selfish prayer. I wanted him quiet so that I could go to sleep, And I get picked up by the scruff of my neck like that. And the voice said to me, you are praying incorrectly. The prayer is, God, Ed is in trouble. He needs your help. And I've never forgotten that. There's never anyone in your face that is not screaming for the help of their God. They just don't know it. It's bringing tears to my eyes now, and it did then, because I realized how incorrectly I had seen things. It happened one more time only, about a month later, and I say it was just God checking up on me. It happened again, and I said, God, Ed is in trouble again, and his family's in trouble. They need your help. And I dropped into the silence, and then I fell asleep and went about my business. And it never happened again. And and I didn't take him to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't, leave a big book on his doorstep or suggest that maybe he call, something. I did nothing but turn it over to God and say, God, he needs your help. And I think that might be the recognition that I'm being asked to do, is simply recognizing that there's nothing I can do. That's God. That's this person's contract with their Creator. Pretty soon, Sunday mornings, Ed and his wife and kids are getting up, going to church. Never had happened before. I don't know where they were going or what. Never had another incident. 2 years passed. We were just, hello, how are you kind of friends, or, neighbors. Never happened again. 2 years later, I'm in Sedona with my husband, and he falls off a cliff and breaks his leg. And we were there, ended up being there 6 weeks. He had helicopter rescue and that whole thing, and that's even yet another healing story. But I'm bringing Nelson home from this accident after 6 weeks. We'd been away from our house, and when we pull up into our home, Ed is in our yard watering our plants. We never had any contact with him whatsoever. Nelson is in a way he has to be helped in. We even brought a chair. He could only sit in one particular kind of chair because of the contraction they had on his heel and everything. And Ed was there, a very big man. I was glad at this time. So he'd never judge, good or evil. And here was this big man who everyone had been afraid of. He comes out, and he's the one that's able to get Nelson in his chair into the house. And he said, I heard about your accident, and I want to know I've been praying for you. So, we get a lot of gifts along the way, and some of them aren't as pleasant, but at the outcome they are. And what I would really like to do now is hear a little bit from you all. I want to hear if you've got, not that I can answer questions, but I can share experience if I've had it on any of it, or it can be open for your sharing or any questions, and a little dialogue about how are you walking this path? How practical is it for you? Is this mysticism practical? Have you had experiences or anything you would like to ask or share or see if I've been through or any of that? Or is everyone content and shy? Shy or content? Yes.
You were saying that when you get a call for help, the first thing you think of is alleviate fear.
Well, the first thing that goes through my mind is God on the path. The first thing that happens is when I'm picking up the phone is God.
Before you even answer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. God.
Do you say anything to the person on the phone about fear?
I hear what they want to say, and it depends on who's calling. If they're new people that don't know why they're calling me and they're just calling because they're scared to death because of something, I listen for a couple of minutes. I let them talk a little bit. That's what dissipates the fear. Is as they're speaking, I'm putting the light right over it. And then I don't use the word fear with them necessarily. I find out what they're afraid of. And then I nullify it with hopefully something that, it's like putting salve on an open wound. I don't rub salt into them and say, well, nothing could be happening to you. That's not it. I do, and I'm not drama. I don't let them go on and on and on. I don't have the time for that. I'd love to because they need to say it, but I get what is going on with them, and then I'm given words like Doris did for me the day I called with a heart attack. She says, honey, and it just came through her, There's only one heart beating, and all I know is it calmed me. That's what I'm looking for, the salve that's going to calm them down to where they can pull back and feel the presence of God. Yeah, yeah.
Can I be real personal here?
Please. I certainly am.
I've had this situation at home, so I get to really work this in my marriage, because I have a blank marriage for several years. And my perception is my wife is very angry. I get to the point where I don't even want to be near her. We lost her 2 children. And it seems like the situation is getting worse and worse and worse to where if I knew how to walk away without hurting the family and the children, I would do that. And I've been struggling with this for so long. I just don't, I deal with it every day. And I read Joel's work and listen to things. I put that into play, and I keep kind of over here, like you say, one foot over here, one foot over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really painful. I mean, it's just a situation that it seems like on every issue that we live, spiritually, emotionally, we're on the opposite end of the page. Everything is a conflict. And I just, I've been dealing with, like I said, for years with this situation. And it's promoted tremendous growth for me. I mean, so in a way I'm thankful. And in a way I'm not sure that it's ever, maybe it was just, I was listening to your words, I thought, oh, there it is. I'm acknowledging something that, there's an illusion going on here. And I see that, but I also forget that. And, sometimes I think I should just get off and move on, and other times I think, no, that's why I've kind of been stuck in that place for a long time.
I've had a couple of marriages in Infinite Way where one principle I stood on was it will be healed or it will be removed. It's a law. It's a spiritual axiom. It will be healed or it will be removed. And all I can do is do every bit of what like you were doing, and it's very painful. And pray for her. What is the highest good for the family as a whole? What is the highest good for this person? If it's to be away from me, then show how that can happen. What's the highest good for everybody involved? Then it's impersonal, and I go back in and I say, I don't know what's the best, I don't know why she's so angry, or if that's the perception. All I can do is, why am I so angry? What am I angry? Am I angry because I keep staying in this situation? Do I feel, and I keep going, and then I don't know, is there any alcohol or drugs involved in the situation? No. It's just...
Actually, after my son was born 6 years ago, I noticed she was diagnosed with postpartum depression, and it just seems like...
She still has it.
And it's only moving further in the wrong direction. I think I've read that usually about 18 months, and balance it somehow, but it hasn't happened. And I guess what's happened lately, too, is more people are coming out, neighbors and friends, and actually starting to say things. For the longest time, I thought, well, it's just me. It's just me. Okay, well, that's nice, and I'm getting some validation here, but, it's spiritually I'm trying to deal with it, and I'm also dealing with my kids, because my kids are being affected. What's right for them? We're not in a real healthy situation.
And do we know that to be true?
Well,
we don't know what muscles they're building.
True.
We don't know that. And the only thing I think I could stand on is, behold the Christ longing to come into expression. For you, for the children, for her. And just stand on that and say, God, it's all, for me, all I can do is surrender 100%. And I always think, oh, I've got to make a decision. It's up to me to decide whether to go or leave or not go or... It's never. It's just, God, thy will, highest form, thy will be done. Thy will be done. Okay? If you want me to be here in this, 3 more incarnations, If that's what it's going to take to wake me up, fine. I don't mean that when I say it, but I say it. Or if, Father, if it's your will for me and her and everyone involved to be, if it's more harmonious for us to be separate, I know nothing. I of my own self know nothing. Do with me as thou seest fit. That's the only place I can go. And I have to stand there, comfort, uncomfort. And I lots of situations, I want to leave, don't leave. And it's that mental turmoil that I must remove myself from. I must drop back into, okay, if you're living this life through me, I must trust that if I'm to go, I will be notified. If I'm to stay, I will be staying. Thy will. That's the only place I know to go. And day by day, this helped me a lot. Am I leaving today? Okay. If I'm not leaving today, how can I make this day the most harmonious? And then the next morning, and then I say, I may leave tomorrow, but today I'm not leaving, so then how can I make the best of this? And that's how I live those kinds of situations. Okay? And then the next day I say, am I leaving today? Well, not to my knowledge, but if I'm notified later, fine. But in the meantime, how can I stay present in this moment? That's really my only job. It's helpful. Hi, good to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate the advice. Joel speaks about the good and the bad, and he calls it all illusion. And I've noticed with my own experience in fullness how subjectively I really want to always hang on to what is good.
And
but now to come to realize that I've been working on here recently is that the thing that keeps me hypnotized is wanting to have it good.
yeah.
And the truth is that there's neither good nor bad. That's the illusion. And to be able to go behind it and see it as the handle of the why. The why is what I'm seeing is given to me now. Because the handle stands in the center of the why and has nothing to do with the V.
That's right. Stay in the handle.
What happens is that because of our conditioning, and especially out of childhood, we have always been emotionally governed and controlled by either the good or desiring the good or having to have the good, and the whole society is wrapped around this false belief of good. And then we have the great opposite over here, and metaphysics in science will start denying it.
Yeah.
And as Joel says, all you're doing is giving power to that which is only a hypnotic illusion.
Absolutely.
And so the thing that is great here is to recognize that there's only one person that's hypnotized, and that's me. that is hypnotized to what I think is G-O-D. And that which is G-O-O-D, I mean, but the G-O-D is really the I that is the center of the V.
That's great.
That we go to that center and rest in the center.
That's right.
I have a situation here, much like what you have, a very close friend of mine, most giving, most delightful. A delightful 82-year-old lady. And but what happens for her about every 3 weeks, she gets drunk. And I tell you, they're out of this feminine, beautiful, giving, loving lady, Van. There is a masculine sense that comes out of her that is unbelievable. I mean, you think she was, or it, or whatever.
Oh, you mean Jack Daniels?
Yeah. I mean, it is so masculine, and it where does this come from? You wonder what, and then how to handle that, because the lady is absolutely not there. There's another energy that's going on, and so I have to come back to the principle. What am I really after? Is it the good that is happening all the time that I'm hanging on to, and all of a sudden it's gone? And then to be able to quiet myself enough to be able to come to my own center, recognize that it's all hypnosis, and it cannot happen because she is the image of the likeness of God, created from that, the very essence of the Christ consciousness, the light that she is, and it's the light that I am, is recognizing the light within me, that sees it in her.
Right. I just was hearing skunks and drunks. You never know when they're going to squirt. Skunks and drunks. Skunk is of God. Skunks and drunks, you never know when they're going to squirt. Yeah, I kind of make my path around.
Well, the important point is knowing where you're standing.
Knowing where you're. That's right. Don't get behind that tail. Yeah. Is there anybody that hasn't had to have dealt with someone in their life that would get intoxicated or hypnotized? There's suddenly power in alcohol to the person, and it's a power, for a person drinking who needs not to be. We think there's power in that drink for good. And then the idea is to neutralize it, not make it evil, not make it good, but it just is what it is. It doesn't belong in my body, and it would be a preference of yours if it wasn't in hers, but that's kind of her decision. What a wonderful group. Whoa. Let's, I think yes.
One question. My name is Bill. I'm fairly new to the readings of Goldsmith. I was raised in a Christian Science family and have retained some of that. But my question is, in the readings lately, I'm coming across this basically saying to be effective in this infinite way, you have to leave your friends and family behind. And so I'm saying, wow.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not even there, but I don't particularly want to leave my friends and family.
Well, the question was to be on this message, you have to leave your friends and family. I think it's talking about the conditioning of the friends and family, not them personally. I don't think Joel's ever told anybody to leave any person literally. What they mean is you might have to leave the belief system or, quote, the game that's being played with the friends or family that could take you from the path. In other words, if they're drawing you into the point where you don't have time to meditate or don't have time to keep your spiritual commitment to yourself, I think that's all he meant, is if that would happen, you have to make a decision. If they're keeping you from the path, then yes, you may have to, but no way do you have to. In fact, I have found, my two friends from childhood who are right now flaming drinking, And I found that I was around them, and I thought, what am I doing?